There's something happening right now that's way bigger than one headline. It's about the exposure of power. And it's creating shakiness in me, in the world, shockwaves. And it's not just because of what was done. It's because of how long it was protected. And it's really forced a question that's been very uncomfortable for me to sit with. And perhaps it's uncomfortable for everyone. How does something like this stay hidden for so long? The answer, the superficial answer is it's bad people. But that's really not the whole truth. Cultures don't sustain themselves because everyone is corrupt. And this is the uncomfortable part. They sustain themselves because silence feels safer than confrontation. That's where it becomes personal for all of us. Most men will never, ever participate in the level of abuse that's been exposed. But many men, myself included, have participated in its dismissal, in minimizing, in assuming our lens was the rational one or the right one, in choosing comfort over curiosity, in asking questions to understand rather than judgment to put someone in their place, put women in their place, more specifically. And that's a harder thing to admit. But it matters more than any commentary ever will. This is where it requires a personal look inside. How are each of us contributing to this? In this video, I wanted to talk about something personal where I've experienced the problem, my problem, and the potential of the resolution. I used to look at my wife and the way she looks at the world, especially her tendency to look through the lens of, quote unquote, is this safe? And I thought it was unnecessary. It was always unnecessary. It was always overcautious. It was always over instructed and over controlling. And in my view, it was weak, because somebody that was not weak wouldn't constantly question their safety. I genuinely believed it was my role to help her see that she was worrying too much. Now, as much as I knew that it's not my job to change her, I thought it was my job to change her. Both things existed simultaneously. And here's the thing, she never changed. But you know what did change? The distance between us. The trust, the respect, the honor. I had to face something uncomfortable. The way she sees the world makes perfect sense if you're her, given her life experience. What I labeled as weakness was actually vigilance. It was care. It was protection. It was motherly instincts and love for me, for my son, for our dogs, for everyone. I judged it. I made fun of it. I used sarcasm and humor. Her strength was expressed differently than my strength. The problem wasn't her lens. It was my lack of respect for it. And when I stopped trying to correct her and started honoring her perspective as legit, not inferior, our connection deepened in a way I hoped for, but I didn't expect. You know, our rift wasn't because anything was wrong with her. It was because I lacked humility. And while that story is not as heinous as the stories going on in the world, the underlying predicament is a lack of respect for another whole half of the human population, generally speaking, even if it's small. Like, my story isn't dramatic. You know, it's easy to critique powerful men in headlines, but it's much harder to look at how we respond to women in our own lives, because it becomes personal. And that's always harder. Do we dismiss their caution as fear? Do we assume our logic is more objective? Do we defend systems reflexively because they benefit us? Do we stay quiet in rooms where something feels off because speaking up might cost us status or access? I have. And in communicating this right now, I wasn't planning this. I just have to say I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the price that I paid for it, but I'm more sorry for the price that women have paid for it. And I didn't see it. I didn't understand it. I didn't see it as weakness on my part. I saw it as, well, that's just the system and somebody else will fix it. You see, integrity isn't about being morally superior. It's about workability and alignment, when your private voice and your public voice match. And there's been a deep sense of shame that I've carried with me around my public voice. And that's why this is so difficult. You know, how many times has your inner compass said no and you don't override it because it's inconvenient or might make you look bad or not cool? You know, sometimes loyalty to a group conflicts with loyalty to the truth. Which one wins? What's the line that you're not willing to cross? The line that might sound dramatic, but crossing it, even if it's quietly, has an impact. You know, if men want to be part of meaningful change, it doesn't start with statements. It starts with respect. It starts with ownership. It starts with respecting women, how they see risk, respecting their intuition, respecting their lived experience, even when it's different than ours, especially when it's different than ours. It means taking a stand for them, even when it's inconvenient, especially when it's inconvenient, even when it's terrifying and it goes against all the other guys in the room. That's what's called for now. You don't have to agree with every perspective, but you do have to honor it as legitimate. Trust can grow where respect is consistent, and trust erodes where dismissal becomes normal. So here's something practical for you to start to play with this week. Think about your perspective. Where do you assume that that's the rational one? Your perspective is the rational one. And I'm talking about, this can be in any aspect of your life, but especially with women. Where do you minimize a woman's concern because it feels inconvenient? Where do you stay quiet in male spaces because speaking up might create friction? These are not to make yourself wrong or to judge yourself. It's just to start to see. It might bring up fear. It might be uncomfortable. When do you just go along with the gang because it feels easier or makes you feel cool? Start to look. Start to notice, ooh, this feels wrong. This feels not aligned. Just start looking. Just start seeing. Humility precedes courage. And it's needed right now in our homes, way before it happens out in the streets or with our neighbors or with the community in general. Here's the deal. You don't have to fix the world. You don't have to solve corruption, but you can decide how you show up in your home, how you show up in your friendships, how you show up in your business, how you show up in your marriage with your girlfriend, in the rooms where no one's recording. Real change doesn't start with exposure. It starts with men willing to examine themselves honestly. I've been practicing doing that for 25 years. I'm a slow study. I've gotten a lot wrong over the years. I'm starting to see and make different choices. I'm still doing it today. So can you.